Ooh, this is a thing for your eyes and ears. Producer Dave here with Chris. Chris, how's it going?
It's going good, and I could not love the intro more.
I
Impossible to love more.
wonder where I got it. So we're going to talk about our DraftKings lineups and how like the overall standings and stuff are going in a minute. But first, Chris, I want you to tell me why Marquise Brown is a must start going into week 3.
Yeah, we're gonna do in these videos just sort of talk about not you're not talking about for DraftKings, although he's not eligible for DraftKings playing Monday night. So we're really not talking about DFS with Marquise Brown. I just want to tack on a little bit of extra film love, just get people excited about players. And I got tons of flex questions this week about Marquise Brown. I consider him, I mean, it's hard to say must start. I had the question like, would you start Marquise Brown or Joe Mixon? And I even think that's arguable. That you could start Brown. I might be tempted to start Mixon, but like Todd Gurley, hell yeah, I could start Marquise Brown. Obviously against Kansas City, it looks like it should be an up and down kind of game. And week 1, Marquise Brown was explosive down the field. I also love how well he's separating in the intermediate routes. I think if people are having any question about starting Marquise Brown, it's because last week against Houston, it wasn't a great result. I think 5 for 42 or something like that. Nothing down the field. Maybe he's going to be a little game flow dependent. It just couldn't look like better game flow against Kansas City. I rarely want to predict game flow, Dave, but this one does look like it should have a lot of points in it, and there's a need to throw the ball, a need to go down the field. And I love the fact that Brown, healthy, now looks like someone who not only is one of the fastest, quickest players in the league, getting open down the field, but in addition, getting some separation as a technician in intermediate routes. I am all aboard starting Marquise Brown in week 3.
Yeah, it's great. And the fun thing is it's Monday night. You get to watch it. If you're down, he's an explosive player, you get to watch it. You don't pick the lineup for that, but it makes it a little more fun when it does work out that way.
Love it.
We're going to take a quick back at DraftKings for week 2, and congrats to Chatty Ice 23 for winning big 218 points, despite the fact that there was a lot of injuries in week 2. 218 is a high score.
Avoiding the landmines. And can I mention Chatty Ice? Pretty good username. My username is Kid Centrifuge, which is obscurely about the name of the band in one of my novels, but Chatty Ice is better.
And then 8th place this week for week 2 was Crucify X, but that 8th place rockets him to 1st overall for our monthly standings. And the winner every 4 weeks gets to do what, Chris?
Oh, it's an honor beyond most honors. But yeah, if after the 4th week, if who'd you say was in first now?
Crucify X.
Oh, Crucify X. Well, if Crucify X is in first at that point, then he or she will get a Skype session with me. We talk for like an hour. It's fun. We talk about whatever you want to talk about. Dave Hewitt can attest to what an incredible prize that is.
My whole day about it.
I mean, that's right. We would love to have you in this contest. If you're watching this, maybe you're already in the contest, but we're putting a link in the notes right below where you can find. This is a private contest that DraftKings puts on for us every week. It's $5 to enter. They take no rake. All the money goes back to the winners. There's like 140 or 50 or something winners each week. The number 1 winner gets. Well, we've had 1,000-person contests that we fill it's by Saturday morning, but that person has been getting $500. It's a pretty good deal. So anyway, DraftKings.com or download the app and use the promo code HarrisTube if you're a new user. HarrisTube, one word, and you'll get a free entry to their contests, and you can use it on our contest.
Yeah, come play with us. Plus, you're going to get the edge over us because we're about to tell you our lineups.
Although you've been doing better than I have so far the first couple of weeks. So has Mitch. So has Craig Clark. I haven't been terrible, but you guys have been pretty good.
Well, when we've been in line, we've been gold. Last week, Jonnu Smith, we both had it. Like we've been, as long as we fall in lockstep, guys, that's where to follow us. So let's get into this week's lineup.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll start at quarterback.
Yeah.
I've talked about these guys on the podcast. I have a podcast 5 days a week, but Cam Newton is my quarterback. I could actually, in light of the fact that I'm going to take a very familiar receiver, I could have gone Kyler Murray here. It would have cost me $100 more. I have Murray a step or two in my season-long weekly ranks ahead of Newton. They're both great. Like I think you kind of can't go wrong. I wound up with Newton in my initial one. I never tweak, so I'm probably going to wind up with Newton. But I could see Kyler Murray. I could see you talk about yours. We'll talk about who we could see in a second.
Well, I did Kyler, so you talked about mine. I did Kyler, and I think the stack that you're kind of hinting at that we'll talk about.
Agreed. If I were so I didn't wind up picking Kenny Golladay. Did you?
No, I didn't. I looked at it, but I felt so dumb week one when I had Kenny Golladay.
So Golladay, the reason I bring it up out of order is because the other guy I was looking at was Matt Stafford, because I think a Stafford-Golladay stack is interesting. Clearly, you're taking a big risk with Golladay, but he's also at 6,200. He's much cheaper. We'll talk about him in a second. I also could see my way through to taking Tom Brady. The Broncos matchup doesn't freak me out. That secondary is young, hasn't looked awesome, and you're getting Godwin back. Brady feels a little underpriced to me.
Yeah, all the quarterbacks we're talking about seem to be around that 6,000 price, and that was just kind of how I felt where I was looking between 7. Like I wasn't so bold to get low enough to like the Trubisky Tannehill down in the 5,000s,
and Trubisky's matchup against Atlanta is a little tempting. He almost made the almost list. He almost made the also under consideration list, and then I came to my senses and realized his head is a block. His head is a square. It's a cube. How can I possibly pick it?
I just have enough Bears agony and couldn't do it. So who do you got for running back?
So let's see. At running back, I didn't actually pay up because there are so many options that are cheap where you're clearly taking your life into your hands, not knowing the workload. And so, the one who I spent money on, who Mitch and I talked on the podcast, he's not priced right. It's Miles Sanders. Did you wind up with Sanders on yours?
I did. The pricing just locks you in.
You did. You locked him in?
Yes.
Yeah. So 6,400 is just not, especially against the Bengals, it's not high enough. We've expressed some misgivings on the channel this week about what Sanders looks like, but this week I really don't have a lot of misgivings. And then I went cheap. I didn't get anybody above 5,000. I think I wound up with Josh Kelley. We talked about him on the YouTube channel. We've shown you some plays, and I wound up at flex with Jerick McKinnon, so another running back. And I'll go over in a second. You probably have some of them too. There are a lot. You could spend money at running back for sure, because there are reasonably priced receivers. But if you want to go cheap at running back this week, there are a lot of options.
Yeah. So I have Miles Sanders, like we said, and then it's like I made the anti-pre-draft Harris football lineup this week. I don't know what happened, but I played Drake.
Henry?
No.
Oh, okay, Drake.
So it's more about our ADP misgivings going into the season. Right. But Drake at 6,000. I ended up with a lot of Arizona in this lineup.
That's a big swing with Murray. You're going to have Drake and you're going to have Hopkins. Ooh, that is a lot. If we want to look at the list of others that people could start assembling, I really only assembled. You can tell me whether you put other pricey guys on there. Obviously, I love Zeke Elliott. He's fantastic. There's no McCaffrey. There's no Barkley. There's no Edwards-Helaire. There's no Ingram. It's a lot of expensive guys could be missing. So I posted 5,300. You could do Mike Davis at 5,100. You could do Jeff Wilson at 4,000. I told you I wound up with McKinnon at my flex. I thought Nyheim Hines, who was it, Matt Harmon on the podcast, made an interesting point about how the Colts are likeliest to attack the Jets and how that's going to be different from the Vikings, that you don't really want to run right up the middle against the Jets the way you did against the Vikings. So maybe Nyheim Hines is a really great value in a PPR. It's possible. Did you have other under consideration running backs?
So my flex, I forgot to say, is Mike Davis. So I paid down there at the 5,100. I considered Gibson at 4,700. Hasn't been a huge production, but at that price, and you talked about big workload, okay. The team keeps going for it, and at 4,700, I'm okay with the he's okay guys at that price.
Right. So I spent money at wide receiver. I did take Hopkins. Obviously, you did as well. There's been no reason to worry about DeAndre Hopkins at all. I spent on DK Metcalf at 6,500 and was so tempted to go Tyler Lockett at 6,400. I wouldn't do both of them, but I was tempted to pick him because it would allow me to trade up to Kyler Murray at quarterback. But now that you've said you're on him, I want to differentiate. I got to catch up. So that's not going to happen. And then Deontay Johnson, I think, is going to be on a ton of lineups. He's come up. What did Mitch say? $1,000 since in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. I
think the algorithm hasn't caught up on Deontay Johnson. I mean, there's a ton of receivers out there. It's hard for me to just say. And that was the day I was positive Deontay Johnson was getting 30%. I mean, he's not going to do that. But I bet you if we look at most owned receivers for the week, he's going to be in the top 5.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I had him last week, right? I did Ben. I stacked him with Juju, and I was watching that game and went, wrong stack. You were so close to cashing if I had Johnson.
Right. Yeah.
So I also did Hopkins.
Receivers.
I got DJ Moore. I actually wanted DK as well, but I couldn't afford him with the way I built my lineup. So I went DJ Moore playing the volume. And then Terry McLaurin's still 5,900. And I just think he's a good player and he's still under 6,000. And, he's right at that edge, but I was happy with him at that price.
It's interesting to me that it's strictly algorithmical reasons, right? It's not anybody like editorially saying, I'm positive Terry McLaurin's way better than Deontay Johnson, but there's $500 between them. So I couldn't afford McLaurin, but frankly, I like Deontay Johnson just as much, maybe not quite just as much, but close, and it is cheaper. It's interesting. Like we said, I considered Galladay for sure. I think considering Jerry Jeudy is a really great idea. It's the cheapest he's going to be all year with Cortland Sutton now out for the year, $5,000 for Jerry Jeudy. If you're looking for cheaper options because you do spend at running back, you could do Michael Pittman at $4,000. There's a sense that with no Paris Campbell, we get more Michael Pittman. And let's really stretch it. I got a $3,000 wide receiver for you that I think you could actually use in a Stars and Scrubs philosophy. If you didn't afford Jeudy, we showed you KJ Hamler on the channel. I don't think he goes away, Dave.
I'm glad you said Hamler because I was like, don't tell me Mooney. Don't do the Bears fan thing to me. Like, he's also $3,000, and I looked at it and again went, no, I'm not throwing money away.
Not ready. Nope. KJ Hamler. Do you have any other receivers you were considering?
The only person in the Venn diagram that didn't overlap with you is I considered John Brown at 5,700. Diggs was a little too expensive, but John Brown's been good, and his price didn't jump up. Like, Allen and Diggs' prices really went up this week. 5,700 seemed good.
I noticed that the Diggs got really expensive. At tight end, I repeated what I did last week. I went with Jonnu Smith. The price didn't come up. I guess I understand why. It was not a lot of production, but it was touchdowns. I like touchdowns. So I think, sure, I'll take the one guy in my lineup who worked out great last week.
Yeah, I mean, you've been talking about it on the podcast. Of if you get the tight ends that are working, it's tight end. Go ahead and chase.
Yeah. It's fine. How about you?
I had to go cheap. I went Logan Thomas, 3,700. The volume's been there, and to make the lineup work, I needed to find something cheap. So he's got like the third most targets out of all tight ends. And if someone had to be cheap, roll the dice on tight ends.
Sure. I'm fine rolling the dice. I don't mind the Logan Thomas. It's so funny to see the disconnect between the stats and what it's actually looked like, because poor Logan Thomas is flinging himself all over the field trying to catch wayward short passes from Dwayne Haskins, and usually it's not working. But certainly a lot of dump offs, a lot of sort of mercy check down, just trying. He actually had end zone targets last week that didn't work out. I'm skeptical that's a long-term source of excitement for your season long, but for a cheap option in DFS, it's great. If I could have paid, I would have taken Darren Waller. There is just no better receiver on that Raider team. He is the wide receiver one. I'm convinced after watching them Monday night. Yeah,
so Waller clocks in at 5,700, and I looked at Ertz at 5,100. But I couldn't.
It's cheap for him,
that.
right?
Yeah,
it's cheap. It is cheap for him. That offense is really struggling. And then guess who I picked for defense? The cheapest one on the board, Jets. Let's move on.
Yep, exactly.
Well, cool. I mean, so we really want to encourage people, if you're seeing this for the first time, come play with us. Click the link, open a new DraftKings account, use that promo code HarrisTube. We appreciate DraftKings sponsoring. And frankly, we just like this contest, and we will continue to update the standings all throughout the season. Yeah, and a quick tip, because sometimes I get people asking over the weekend for the link again, if you're not seeing it. You can click that and click reserve right now. Even if you can't put in your lineup or you're watching us at work or whatever, click reserve, and then you have your spot so you don't miss out. Because it is gonna fill. They need to make a bigger room for us. They keep promising they're gonna do it, and then they haven't. So I hope in future weeks we're gonna get bigger rooms. But right now it's 1,000 people, and it will fill. So you should reserve. Yep, and come play with us. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button. Write a comment. Tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button, and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.